Hello everyone, this is Moby's Primal, and I am back with another Warhammer Fantasy Battle Report. This game marks two things. One, it's the first game in a long time against the relatively new Beastmen player that I've played several times before, and now I'm facing him with my mostly knight army. So, he would struggle a lot against my peasant horde army, but now it's a chance to show him the true might of Bretonnia. And then secondly, this is my first game since my wedding, so it's the first game of Warhammer I've had to ask permission to play. Just kidding about that second part though, because I totes swear the pants in this family.
Hey, keep it down in there.
Yes, dear. We just edited that for laughs. It's not really like that. Anyways, we rolled it up, and it's a blood and glory scenario. Beastmen have a fortitude of 6. Heartless have a fortitude of 8. First to 3 loses, 2,400 points. Let's get it on. So starting from my opponent's left, he's got a Razor Gore Chariot, and then he's got 40 Gore with extra hand weapons. Next to them is his Minotaur bus of 4 models, who's the blood kind there has got Elmer Fudd's favorite item, which that's the Wooby Wing of Wooin. That's a terrible impression of Elmer Fudd. Anyway, the general there, Fuzzy Wuzzy, he also joins that unit. He's got a kind of a modification of the Ramhorn build with he's got the Ramhorn helm, gnarled hide, sword of swift slaying, and then a 4+ ward. So most of the Ramhorn builds forgo the ward save in lieu of the Dawnstones to make the armor save re-rollable. But I think he was kind of worried about my old kit with my heroic killing blow general, so that's why he's got the ward save. Then on the right, he's got 30 Bestigor. They carry the Banner of Swiftness, so they actually move 6. And then he's got 4 Tuscarora Chariots with some Harpies and his Gorbel BSB with the Armor of Destiny sprinkled in. And then that tree there that you see, that's actually a shard of the Herdstone, and he has 3 mages flocked around it. So 2 level 1 beasts, 1 level 2 shadow, and amongst the 3 of them, they have the Chalice of Dark Rain, a Dispel Scroll, and the Herdstone thing. Okay, so Heartless lines see a heavy right flank with all 3 lances of knights. Hayner's up front there, so he's, of course, got the Virtual Stoicism, Genji Helm, and Crown of Command. So he's a 2+ rerollable Stubborn Knight with a rerollable break check, even if he's not within range of the BSB. His job is Mobile Roadblock. And then my level 4 Mage Sam is also there. She has the Earthing Rod. And Bardorba, who's my BSB, is in with the Center Knights, and he's got the Kingdom Key, which is the +1 Strength Sword. He's got a Dragon Helm and a Toughness Potion. And then on my left flank, I've got 2 Archer units, Fast Cavalry, Pegasus Knights, and the 2nd Trebuchet. So much more dispersed on the left flank. I go ahead and pray, but my opponent surprises me and lets me go first. And his reasoning is that if he goes first, he's just going to move up into charge range of all my lances. So while that may necessarily be true, it's robbing a lot of advantage from the Beastmen army. So here's a pro tip. When you face Bretonnia and they have this many knights, you can pretty much anticipate that Bretonnia is going to pray. So you can go ahead and deploy with a mindset that you are definitely going to go first. Then you can use chaff units to disrupt all the knight charges, so you don't have to worry about getting triple and double charged from the offset. With my Bretonnian army, and I do this a lot with my other armies when I play them once in a blue moon, I always set up in what I like to refer to it as contingency deployment, and that is I know or I think I'm going to go second, except in the case of this battle, so I'm going to deploy in a fashion that is going to give me lots of options on what to do based on what I can reasonably assume where my opponent will be after he takes his first turn. So a good example for this is archers. Like, I usually deploy them right on or near the table edge, and why? Because they have a longbow, and if I deploy them right on the line and he deploys on the right on the line, they're 24 inches apart, he marches up, and now if he moves 10 inches, now we're only 14 inches apart. Well, if I deploy far back, I can make use of that extra long range that I have with the longbow, and you got to take advantage of that as long as you can. Okay, tactical deployment tangent over. Since I did get to go first, I moved my fast cavalry up to gum up the Beastmen lines on the right, and then I battery them with all my Knight Lances. And then on the left, I moved my Pegasus up to just barely be in charge range of one of the chariots. I don't like getting charged by chariots with those guys because they can't be steadfast, and it's based on how many impact hits happen. And then thanks to a scroll and the Chalice of Dark Rain, magic and shooting pretty much do nothing. But with the board control afforded by getting go first, I think it was well worth it. we go into Beastmen 1. The chariot on the left fails to charge into the Pegasus unit, but the Razor Gore chariot on the right goes whomping on the peasants. Yeah, I'm okay with this. These guys' job was basically to die, but hold up a Gore unit for a turn, and they're pretty much doing that, regardless of getting killed here. Aside from that, the best Gore and the chariots are now moving over to the right to try to engage my nobodies, who are centrally stationed at deployment, but then I used a swift reform to move them over to the right on the first turn. During magic, Wysons and Occams got cast onto the Gore to keep me from charging them next turn. And then, of course, during combat, the chariot blats out the yeoman and then reforms to face the impending lance charge, which is exactly what I do in Heartless 2. The rightmost lance makes an easy charge into the chariot, and then Hainer flies up right into the face of the Gore. He's not in combat, you know, he's there as a roadblock, since those buffs will all expire before the Gore get a chance to fight if they charge him next turn. I don't have to worry about them. I just have to stop any magic that he's going to do next round. Okay, so here's a close-up. Notice I'm also not giving the Minotaurs a lot of options either. They can't see Hainer to get him, and it's a pretty long charge to either of those Knight Lances, and if they did hit the Knight Lance, they'd have to break them to avoid being flanked. Okay, over on the left, my Pegasus Knights did charge the chariot that failed last turn, and I'm actually a really bit worried about this, because to overrun into the second chariot, I think I need like a 9 or something like that, which also assumes I can beat the first chariot in combat in the first place. Alright, so magic went terribly well this turn. I managed a harmonic convergence on the knights, making them extremely, extremely potently dangerous and also defending. And then I put Ice Shard Blizzard onto the Gore, and my opponent I think just let it go through because he was concerned about the -1 to hit, which that's not what I'm after here. What I'm doing here is I expect the knights to beat the chariot, and that's going to cause a panic check on the Gore, and they'd be leadership 7 thanks to they're within range of the general and also that -1. And then I also miscast a comet onto the Shard of the Herdstone, again being represented by that tree, so I guess it's Tree of the Herdstone. But now my opponent has to risk being squashed by a comet if he wants to reap the benefits of that item with his mages. Okay, shooting was pretty uneventful. Then in combat, things go beautifully well on the right. The knights break and run down the chariot without taking any wounds in return, and that corresponding panic check is failed by the Gore, who are basically a hair's breadth away from hitting the board edge and being deleted from the table. Very happy with how that shook out, but not so happy about how it worked out here on the left. With all my knights' attacks and the ponies, I only managed to do a single wound on that stinking chariot, and they were even wounded in return, so I did break the chariot because I 1x1 with the charge, but I couldn't run it down, nor could I get the distance to engage with the second chariot. So now I'm definitely eating a counter charge, and I'm afraid I may have just lost this Pegasus unit for doing all but just one hit on the Tuscarora chariot. And the table looks like this, going into Beastmen 2. The chariot gets in and his buddy rallies, so woohoo, stupid Pegasus Knights, all you've done so far is done a wound to a chariot. The Gore on the right rallied as well, so I'll have to deal with them. Luckily, Hainer's there, so I'm not terribly worried. He has a lot of options for locking that unit down without spell support. The Harpies swoop up to screen the Minotaurs, who also move up since they don't want to risk failing a charge, and everything else moves away from the Herdstone because it could be ground zero here in a second. But magic phase, it doesn't happen. The comet doesn't come down, but it gains a pip, and Wysons is cast onto the Minotaurs before we go into combat, and I am absolutely flabbergasted. The chariot hit with 6 impact hits, but only wounded with 1 of them, and then plus the pigs, and the Gore, and the best of Gore in the back, only that 1 wound went through. So it's unbelievable. I couldn't manage to hit in return, though, so I actually lost by 2. And checking on a 6 usually means I'm done in spades, but I actually threw a pair of 3s, and now I just might have a bit of a chance here. I would have never expected this from my Pegasus Knights the way I usually roll. Okay, so Heartless 3, and I go ahead and charge my Knights into the Gore. I figure I probably can't break his Steadfast this turn, but with a buff or a Hex into that combat, I probably won't take any damage. And there's nothing positioned to countercharge me, so I can add weight in the next turn by charging Hainer into the flank. All I have to do is win this round, survive next round, and then I should be set. My fast cavalry and knights then start jockeying around as I'm actually using those heartbeats to screen the charge for me to keep those minotaurs from getting into all my knights, because I think I can be okay, but I'd rather not risk it. Okay, and then magic happens and all heck breaks loose. The comet had 2 pips on it, and it comes down and it hits everything. The distance was, I think, 11 inches, which hits all 3 mages, BSB, Bestigors, Minotaurs, Gore, and is just shy of hitting my own knights. So it just does terrible, terrible damage to the Beastmen army. And this is all what it does. It kills all 3 shamans outright. 10 Gore die, as do 15 Bestigor. Miraculously, after wounding the Gore 10 times with the comet, he saved 7 of them with his 4+ ward save, so he's actually still kicking around. And also the Minotaur shrugged off a lot of damage thanks to the Wysons and how the wounds are kind of doled out. So they only lost 1 Pud, they took a wound on each of the champion and the General Fuzzy Wuzzy, and that's it. My opponent was looking at it, he's really considering conceding the game here, but you know, after kind of talking it out, he decided to knuckle up and fight on, so good on him. So this is just one of those games that makes the comet feared. You know, lots of times it comes down, range is so small it doesn't hit anything but 1 unit, but here, this is the one that that people talk about for a long time, and it may have just won me the game. And then after all the devastation from the comet, Sam puts a harmonic convergence on the knights, which makes them crazy defensive and lets them kill just enough Gore. After the comet hit and after all the wounds that they do, they break the enemy steadfast and chase them off the table. 1 standard down for the Beastmen. So this turn is just a comedy of unlucky errors for my opponent here. Then on the left, to kind of add to it, the Pegasus Knights managed to do a wound on the chariot they were fighting. They break it, run it down, and now have recharged the first chariot from the second turn from before. I would have never expected this sort of performance from them. I thought they were doomed when they got countercharged last turn. So Beastmen 3 sees the remaining 2 free chariots charge both my archer units, and the Gorbel and Bestigor move up to support the center of the field. The Harpies move up to charge the Trebuchet next turn, and also the Minotaurs. You know, I'm not sure what my opponent was thinking here. He moved them up to, I guess, avoid the nobodies, but in doing so, he's given me an easy flank charge with my knights led by Bardorba. And with that guy's toughness potion and the magic dominance I have now, I'm not really worried about those Minotaurs whatsoever. They're not juiced up on combat or anything like that. So we'll see what happens next turn. In combat, we trade 1 Tuskor chariot fighting the Pegasus Knights for 2 peasant archer units, 2 standards down for the Heartless, and actually those chariots, you know, they've been the ones in the back have been dorked around the Pegasus Knights for pretty much half the game, so that's a 275-point unit messing around with 2 80-ish points chariots, and even though the Pegasus Knights eventually saw them off, I almost lost them in the process. So, you know, it's not a bad deal, I guess, for my eye, if I were playing as the Beastmen here. We go into top of 4 Heartless, and Bardorba tilts his lance and knights into the flank of the Minotaurs. Some other shuffling of knights prepping to gang up on the Bestigor in the last few turns of the game. One of my trebuchets finally hits for the first time this game, and it completely squashes the BSB, so down another standard for Beastmen. And then in combat, the Minotaur champion gets into a challenge with the Knight champion. And everything's a pillow fight except for Fuzzy Wuzzy and Bardorba. Fuzzy can't make a dent in Bardorba's armor thanks to his augmented toughness and his high armor save. But my knight manages to stroke out 2 wounds against the enemy general. I win handedly through combat res, break the unit, which instantly kills the Minotaur standard for the last stand rule, and takes the Beastmen to Fortitude 3, and ends the game with a Heartless win. So, you know, my opponent is admittedly still pretty new to the game of Warhammer, but I almost had to bring this army roster out with all the knights just to show him what he could be facing instead of the usual peasant Zerg units that I run. And, you know, this game is also, it bellies a valuable lesson that to always take advantage of going first against Bretonnia and deploying so you can pressure the knights early on. A lot of lessons to be learned. Hope the next game is a little bit more competitive. That's the report, though. I hope to see you in the next battle.